On the night before she was to marry the Crown Prince Xie Jingchen, Lin Yu was dragged into a dark alley and violated all night by 4 hooligans. She took more than half a month to recover, forcing herself countless times to recall the faces of the 4 men. Finally, when she remembered and took the portraits to the Yamen to report the crime, but the Yamen told her that those who had humiliated her were all under the Crown Prince, Lin Yu couldn't believe it. She was the person the Crown Prince cherished most. How could anyone dare to lay a hand on her? But she asked again and again, and the answer was still the same. How could this official not recognize the Crown Prince's guards? This humble official can only tell you, young lady, that those individuals on the list are currently missing. Please don't make things difficult for this humble official by asking for more. She was lost and dejected, and at this moment, she didn't know who to believe. Clearly, after learning that her innocence had been ruined, Crown Prince Xie Jingchen frantically carried her back to the manor. All the servants in the courtyard were punished, flogged, and the incident caused a sensation throughout the capital that day. The next day, the streets and alleys were plastered with her scandalous portraits, and countless vulgar letters were delivered to the Crown Prince's residence. Xie Jingchen immediately mobilized all the secret guards in the Crown Prince's residence to silence the rumors. Everyone said that the Crown Prince was making such a fuss over a concubine, and warned him to be careful of being ruined by lust. However, Xie Jingchen brought her into the residence with great fanfare as his adopted sister, completely disregarding the gossip. On the night she entered the manor, he explained to her. He said that the emperor was furious about it and bestowed the marriage upon the legitimate daughter of the prime minister's mansion. He couldn't refuse, so he could only let her enter the manor as an adopted sister. They could still be together forever. She was only touched by everything he had done for her and agreed without hesitation. How could those thieves possibly be his men now? Lin Yu didn't believe it at all, and she didn't dare to believe it. She walked back to the mansion in a daze. She wanted to find Xie Jingchen and ask him clearly, but as soon as he reached the study door, he heard Xie Jingchen's guard's voice from inside. Your Highness is indeed skilled, giving those 4 people a sum of money and even sending people to spread her nude photos throughout the city. I'm afraid Miss Lin will never know, even until her death, that the culprit who humiliated her and even spread all of this was arranged by you, just a pig butcher, with a lowly status. Is it really worth your Highness spending so much effort to keep her? At that moment, Lin Yu felt a chill all over her body. Almost unable to stand, she heard Xie Jingchen's gentle voice again. Noble families value matching social status. A legitimate daughter of the Prime Minister's residence like WNU is perfect to be the Crown Princess. A Yu status is indeed a bit low, but her body has given me a taste of pleasure. I will naturally protect her, but if I don't ruin her innocence, she will never willingly stay by my side. She is pure and kind by nature, so she wouldn't think of the truth. You should also be careful and never talk nonsense in front of Ayu. Her hands trembled, and she felt a chill in her heart. Turning to leave, Lin Yu could barely see the road ahead, pure and kind by nature. This was also the first thing Xie Jingchen said to her before he lost his memory. That year, she bought him from the slave market, his body covered in festering sores. To save his life, she didn't hesitate to cut off skin from her leg to replace his. He weakly smiled and sighed. You truly have a pure and kind nature, miss. If I ever regain my memory, I will definitely marry you and repay your great kindness today. Xie Jingchen gave her a home, which was the happiest time of her life. They depended on each other for survival. Xie Jingchen followed her, hawking along the street, pushing the small stall home together. He couldn't bear for her to do dirty or tiring work, taking it all upon himself. He also once made a hairpin with his own hands and engraved, Xie Jingchen and Lin Yu, together forever. So upon learning Xie Jingchen's identity as the Crown Prince, she wanted to let go, But she still softened her heart because he had waited bitterly for a month, even to the point of collapsing before her gate. Who would have thought that the person who once broke his bones to shield her from a fist, risked his life to gather lotus flowers, and even exchanged blood to save her life, would now wield the blade himself, carving out her heart and piercing her bones? After wandering aimlessly for an unknown amount of time, Lin Yu bumped into someone. "Oh my, isn't this our Miss Yu?" The maidservant beside Crown Princess Shenhuanyue waved a few sheets of paper. They were portraits co-created by her and the Crown Prince. The maidservant sneered as she threw the paintings in her face. How shameless. An unmarried young lady actually has the Crown Prince's portrait in her boudoir. Lin Yu's face turned pale. This was a portrait they painted together when the Crown Prince lost his memory and lived with her, every stroke filled with affection. Shenhuanyue walked up to Lin Yu, looking down at her condescendingly. "I originally thought you were just from a humble background and didn't understand the rules. I pitied you for being humiliated and remembered that you saved His Highness. So I was more tolerant. I never expected His Highness to go to great lengths for your reputation, but you secretly coveted His Royal Highness the Crown Prince." A maid sneered and interjected. Now it seems she realized she couldn't seduce His Royal Highness the Crown Prince, so she went out to seduce other men. "I didn't. You're slandering me." Lin Yu's tears gushed out. Xie Jingchen once held her hand-drawn, lifelike portrait, and she thought it was his true heart for her. He said marrying the Crown Princess was a matter of circumstance, begging her not to leave him, and she believed him. At this moment, the paper was crumpled by his legal wife, appearing incredibly mocking. "How dare you, to be so unruly in my presence?" Shenhuanyue raised her hand high, and the slap landed on Lin Yu's face without hesitation. Lin Yu was knocked to the ground by the force, her fair cheeks swelling instantly. Just then, Xie Jingchen's cold voice rang out. "What's going on?" He strolled over, his gaze landing on Lin Yu's swollen cheeks, his brow furrowing slightly, but his expression remained indifferent. Shenhuanyue did not restrain her arrogance in the slightest, but instead straightened her back. "Your Highness, you've come at the right time. Miss Yu secretly kept a portrait of your Highness." This concubine was only kindly inquiring, but she actually contradicted me. Shenhuanyue stepped even closer. "If she is not strictly disciplined, and others follow suit in the future, what will become of the Crown Prince's reputation?" Xie Jingchen's gaze fell on Lin Yu again, but he didn't speak. "Or is it, Your Highness the Crown Prince? Are you feeling sorry for her?" Xie Jingchen's eyelashes fluttered, and he shifted his gaze, his voice calm. "WNU is in charge of the household affairs, so naturally she can discipline anyone. I'm just afraid you'll hurt your own hand." The man who said he would protect her for life didn't even ask a question and allowed Shenhuanyue to handle it. He personally arranged for people to ruin her, and now he's letting his primary wife humiliate her like this. This realization made Lin Yu feel more bone-chilling cold and despair than any words from Shenhuanyue. Lin Yu suddenly felt that everything was absurd and ridiculous. Hearing this, Shenhuanyue's lips curled into a satisfied smile, and she snorted coldly. "Then drag her down and give her 20 strokes of the cane." Lin Yu didn't struggle, but just used those hollow, dead eyes to take a deep, desperate look at Xie Jingchen. Xie Jingchen avoided that gaze and asked Shenhuanyue gently, "Have you had your dinner yet?" Lin Yu laughed miserably, resigned to being dragged along the cobblestone path. After the caning, Lin Yu dragged her battered body, step by step, back to her bedroom. She endured the pain and insisted on writing a letter, asking her personal maid to send it out. "Father, Mother, your daughter promises to leave the capital and return home with you in a month, and never see Xie Jingchen again. Some time ago, when she was disgraced and scandalous pictures were scattered everywhere, her biological parents unexpectedly found her. Trapped by her deep affection for Xie Jingchen, she reluctantly refused to acknowledge them. Now, the territory of Yang is vast. With high mountains and long rivers, enough to keep them from ever seeing each other again. The next day, Lin Yu woke up just as Xie Jingchen pushed the door open, still holding a medicine bottle in his hand. Awake, he drew Lin Yu into his arms and carefully applied the medicine to her. Okay, the wound won't leave a scar. I know you feel wronged, but you must understand my difficulties. If I had protected you then, it would have given others something to talk about. Lin Yu lay in his arms. Not speaking, Xie Jingchen put down the medicine and took out a hairpin. What happened yesterday? WNU was also for the sake of the East Palace's reputation. I specially chose a hairpin for you, just as compensation. Don't take this matter to heart. Lin Yu was momentarily lost in thought. When Xie Jingchen lost his memory, he once carved a hairpin for her. That hairpin was Xie Jingchen's promise of a lifetime of love and devotion, while this hairpin is compensation. Seeing her silence, Xie Jingchen chuckled and looped it around her. It's very beautiful. In a few days, there will be a flower viewing banquet in the palace. You can wear it then and go with me. In the next few days, you should learn the rules from WNU first. You need to adapt to everything in the capital as soon as possible, so that you can stay with me forever. Lin Yu understood and gave a bitter smile. She finally understood the purpose of Xie Jingchen's visit. He was the one who used to say he liked her spontaneity, and now he's the one telling her to learn manners. Xie Jingchen didn't notice her state and only said, WNU comes from a distinguished family. She will surely provide you with the best instruction. No sooner had Xie Jingchen left than several matrons barged in, practically dragging Lin Yu away. She was dropped in front of Shen Huanyue, and before she could get up, a maid kicked the back of her knees, forcing her to kneel. Coming from the countryside, you're clearly uncultured. How dare you stand before the crown princess? Shen Huanyue skimmed the tea froth and opened her mouth with composure. Since His Royal Highness the Crown Prince has asked me to teach you etiquette, I can hardly refuse. Miss, you must learn well. Lin Yu's struggle was like tiny ripples in a lake, easily suppressed. She said her posture was unsightly, so Lin Yu knelt in the courtyard for an hour, holding the heavy incense burner. She said Lin Yu smelled of fish, so the maid poured a pot of boiling water on Lin Yu with perfect precision. She said how could a girl know how to slaughter pigs but not needlework, so Lin Yu's hands were pricked with embroidery needles until they bled. In just one morning, Lin Yu couldn't lift her hands, and her clothes were soaked. She had also completely learned her lesson. No more struggling, no courage to struggle. Looking at her pale face, Shen Huanyue said with great compassion, "All right. Come with me to serve His Highness his meal." Xie Jingchen finished his official business and arrived early. Seeing them coming, his eyes lingered on Lin Yu for a moment, but in the end he said nothing, and smiled as he led Shen Huanyue to sit down. The two sat facing each other, one poised and elegant, the other grand and imposing. Lin Yu stood to the side, like the lowest of palace maids. Xie Jingchen reached out and pulled Shen Huanyue into his arms. Huanyue. Xiaoyu has a free-spirited personality. Teaching her must have taken a lot of effort. Shen Huanyue nestled in his arms. Husband, this is all your concubine should do. Lin Yu watched the two being so intimate, stunned, and silently lowered her eyes. What are you standing there for? Didn't I tell you to pour tea for His Highness? Shen Huanyue's voice woke her up. Lin Yu responded softly and hastily, yes. But her hand was already injured, and the pain caused the teapot to fall and shatter, spilling tea all over Shen Huanyue. Shen Huanyue's sleeves were soaked, and her face immediately turned extremely unsightly. Sister Yu, even if you don't want to learn etiquette properly, you can't use such a way to humiliate me. Xie Jingchen's gaze, which had been briefly lingering on Lin Yu's hand, was instantly drawn away, and he anxiously went to check on Shen Huanyue's condition. Are you hurt? Before Shen Huanyue could speak, Xie Jingchen had already noticed her fingertip. Reddened by the burn, the crown prince, who always paid attention to etiquette, actually disregarded everything at this moment and put Shen Huanyue's fingertip into his lips to cool it down. A faint blush crept onto Shen Huanyue's cheeks. Husband, Xie Jingchen held her for a long while before letting go, his eyes filled with disappointment as he looked at Lin Yu. Xiaoyu, you must accept the punishment for doing wrong. I can't always indulge you. Lin Yu shook her head repeatedly. I didn't do it on purpose. My hand, Shen Huanyue interrupted. My lord, Miss Yu is just used to being wild in the countryside and hasn't adapted to the rules of the capital yet. There's no need for you to be angry. Xie Jingchen felt even more sorry for her. Huanyue, you are just too kind. Looking at Lin Yu, his eyes became even colder. Huanyue is so generous. Then you should kneel and serve her food to atone for your sins. As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Yu was kicked hard and knelt at their feet. Her knees landed right on the shards on the ground, and a sharp pain struck instantly, almost making her unable to kneel. Lin Yu endured the pain, using her scarred hands to serve them food, each time tugging at the wounds. They ate for how long? Lin Yu knelt for how long? Shards of porcelain embedded in her flesh. After the meal, Xie Jingchen left with Shen Huanyue, turning back to look at Lin Yu before leaving. Learn the rules well, remember your place, and don't embarrass me at the flower appreciation banquet. She would remember. Remember the difference in their status. Remember his every look. Remember that he no longer loved her. Lin Yu could no longer hold on, letting herself fall into darkness. Lin Yu woke up again the next day. The door was pushed open with a clang, and the glaring sunlight poured in. Xie Jingchen's figure stood in the doorway, his voice devoid of emotion. Awake, if you're awake, tidy yourself up and go to the flower viewing banquet. She laboriously propped up her almost collapsing body. Your Highness, like this, how can I go? Xie Jingchen frowned slightly when he heard this title. I've never heard you complain about killing pigs, but learning some manners makes you so delicate. You threw your tantrum yesterday. Don't be petty today. Looking at his matter-of-course expression, Lin Yu felt a chill in her heart. Just because she's suffered a lot, does that mean she doesn't feel pain when she's hurt? Without explanation, he called for people to come in and almost dragged Lin Yu to wash and dress before stuffing her into the carriage. The flower viewing banquet was held in a famous garden in the suburbs. When the crown prince's carriage arrived, the long-waiting sons and daughters of noble families, as well as the ladies of rank, all cast their gazes. The focus of everyone's attention was naturally on the perfect couple. Xie Jingchen tenderly helped Shen Huanyue out of the car, his eyes filled with warmth. Shen Huanyue's eyes rippled with emotion as she shyly placed her hand in his palm. His Highness and the Crown Princess are truly in love. Indeed, the Crown Prince's heart cannot be taken by just anyone. Some people should really consider whether they are worthy. Lin Yu remained expressionless, as if she hadn't heard, and simply waited to get out of the carriage. Just as she stepped forward, the coachman deftly put away the footstool. Lin Yu was taken aback. Brother Liu, I haven't. The coachman, old Liu, was full of disdain. The stool is for the masters to step on. A lowly woman like you, without a name or status and with a bad reputation, is worthy of it. If you get it dirty, how will the masters use it later? Laughter erupted instantly, with countless eyes staring at her. Lin Yu had no choice but to grit her teeth and clumsily, awkwardly climb down, supporting herself on the edge of the wheel. The moment she jumped to the ground, she aggravated the wound on her knee, and the pain caused Lin Yu to break out in a cold sweat, almost falling to the ground. Ha ha ha, doesn't she look like a crippled monkey? Such vulgar manners. How dare you come to this flower viewing party? You're truly spoiling the beautiful spring scenery. Xie Jingchen, who was walking ahead, didn't pause his steps at all, as if the embarrassing commotion behind him had nothing to do with him. Lin Yu gritted her teeth and followed, enduring the pain. As soon as they reached their side, Xie Jingchen was surrounded by some young noblemen. Xie Jingchen was slightly helpless and said gently to Shen Huanyue, "Huanyue, please keep an eye on Xiaoyu here." Xie Jingchen glanced at Lin Yu before turning and walking away. As soon as he left, Shen Huanyue and Lin Yu were immediately surrounded by a group of bejeweled young ladies from aristocratic families. "Sister Crown Princess. Is this the Crown Prince's adopted sister who had a rendezvous with 4 men in the street? Now that I see her, she really does have the air of the countryside about her. I'm afraid she seduced all the wild men in the capital. That's why she came to the flower viewing party, planning to seduce some young masters from noble families." Lin Yu stood in the middle, humiliated as if she had been stripped naked. She wanted to explain, but her throat was as if it was being strangled by a hand, unable to make a sound. Yes. She was the one humiliated in the street, she was the one brought back to the manor by the Crown Prince, and she was the one whose explicit painting was seen by the entire city, but this was never her fault. Shen Huanyue spoke up at the right moment. "In this world, a woman's chastity is the most important thing. Sisters, don't joke about things like what happened to Fish. Fish will be sad if she hears it." As soon as these words came out, their dissatisfaction with Lin Yu became even stronger. "Sister, you've been deceived by this vixen. Someone like her probably spends all night thinking about how to get into the Crown Prince's bed." "Exactly. This shameless thing deserves to be drowned in a pig cage." Suddenly, a cup of scalding hot tea was unexpectedly splashed on Lin Yu's chest, the tea quickly soaking through her thin clothes. The pink-clad young lady who splashed the water disgustedly covered her nose. "You're so dirty. I'm just helping you wash away this filth," Shen Huanyue said with concern. "Miss Yu, you should go and change your clothes quickly, so as not to lose your dignity." Lin Yu's throat was so dry and painful that she almost squeezed out 2 words from between her teeth. "Thank you." When Lin Yu came back after changing her clothes, Shen Huanyue warmly took her hand. "Miss Yu, you're back just in time. I was just discussing your marriage with them. You're so young, you mustn't waste your best years like this. Sisters, do you have any suitable men in your families?" The crowd instantly became noisy. A butcher would be a perfect match for her, a good match. "My family does have a lame old steward." Amidst the chorus of disdain, a young lady suddenly rushed forward, pointing at her with furious indignation. "What's the point of introducing her? She's already hooked up with my cousin." Lin Yu's pupils trembled, and an ominous premonition washed over her. The next second, the crowd parted like a tide, led by Xie Jingchen. The male guests walked towards this side with varied expressions. 2 guards were roughly escorting a man with a wretched appearance and shifty eyes. The man, upon seeing Lin Yu, as if seeing a life-saving straw, abruptly broke free from the guard's grip, taking out a familiar handkerchief embroidered with fish playing among lotus leaves from his arms. "Your Highness, it's her. She's the one who seduced me. I have never even met this man. The Li family's young master." Li Jiaohui shouted, pointing at Lin Yu. "She's lying. Your Highness, I'm telling the truth. It was this woman who slipped the handkerchief into my hand while I was changing." At these words, Lin Yu's face turned deathly pale. She looked at Xie Jingchen as if grasping at the last straw. "Your Highness, I didn't. You have to believe me." Only Xie Jingchen knew best about those hooligans and erotic paintings. Only he knew best that he wasn't that kind of person. Cousin Li sneered. "You didn't. Would my cousin deceive His Highness for someone as notorious and inherently promiscuous as you?" The people next to him immediately chimed in. "That's right. Although young Master Li is a well-known playboy in the capital, and countless women have been ruined by him, there's no need to offend His Highness for a butcher's daughter," Shen Huanyue gently suggested. "Husband, young Master Li is handsome and from a distinguished family. Marrying him to Miss Yu would be a good match. Why not bestow a marriage upon the 2 of them, fulfilling Miss Yu's affections?" Xie Jingchen's face was livid. and he remained silent for a long time. In the ensuing silence, someone quietly whispered, "Could it be that His Highness adopting her as a foster sister is just a facade? Could it be that he's taken her as a lover? If that's the case, what will become of the Crown Princess? I'm afraid the Prime Minister will also." As soon as these words were spoken, the hesitation in Xie Jingchen's eyes instantly disappeared. "In that case, I grant you two to choose a day for your wedding." These few words made Lin Yu feel as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. He was the one who coaxed her to come to the capital. He was the one who personally destroyed her innocence. Now, he is even the one personally bestowing the marriage. She shouldn't have any more expectations of him. She should have realized long ago that the Xie Jingchen who loved her was already dead. That's it, she accepted it. Lin Yu slowly knelt down in front of him, saying each word clearly. "This commoner, thanks Your Highness for bestowing this marriage." The flower viewing banquet ended in an unpleasant manner. Lin Yu returned to the Crown Prince's residence and didn't leave her quarters for 3 consecutive days. It wasn't until that day when a maid from the called her to a certain restaurant, saying that Xie Jingchen had something important to discuss with her. She was reluctant to go, but she also knew she didn't have the right to refuse. She could enter the room, but the person waiting for her was Li Jiahui. "Miss Lin, you've finally arrived. I've been waiting for you so long." Saying that, without waiting for Lin Yu to react, he pinned her down onto the round table. The door was simultaneously closed by someone. Lin Yu had no further misunderstandings at this moment. She had been deceived. Lin Yu forced back the nausea surging in her stomach and struggled hard. "Let me go." Li Jiahui was enraged by her action and slapped her face hard, one hand firmly her throat. "Don't be so ungrateful. In the entire capital, no woman has dared to resist me. Besides, you're just a whore who's slept with thousands and been ridden by tens of thousands. If I marry you, what more could you possibly want?" Saying that, he pried open her mouth and poured all the wine from the table into Lin Yu's mouth. Lin Yu coughed violently from choking, her cheeks and eye sockets flushed red. Li Huijiao bent down, licking her white neck where wine had stained it, mouthful by mouthful, with a face full of greed. So fragrant. A wave of nausea surged in Lin Yu's stomach, want to struggle, but the alcohol took effect and she had completely lost the strength to fight. She could only watch helplessly as Li Jiahui sneered and tore open her own clothes. These past few days, whenever Xie Jingchen closed his eyes, he would see Lin Yu's face full of despair from that day. Lin Yu loved him so much. How could she possibly marry someone else? He had indeed been cold to her these past couple of days, which is why she had thrown a tantrum. Here's the translation. He just needed to be appeased. Xie Jingchen. Xie Jingchen's cake crashed to the ground with a bang. To think he couldn't save face in front of everyone and still delayed the wedding. To think he was still so concerned about her even after being rejected and treated coldly, and she was eager to go on a date with another man. Isn't the wealth and luxury that I can give her enough? Since she's so eager to climb higher, there's no need to delay the wedding. Anyway, she accepts any man. And she's eager to offer herself up the moment she gets a little benefit. If it weren't for the fact that she saved me back then, I would find it disgusting even to touch her. The words had barely faded when a soft sound echoed from the courtyard. Lin Yu appeared at the doorway, her clothes torn and her body covered in wounds. Hearing Xie Jingchen's words, the fingertips clutching her clothes trembled slightly. Xie Jingchen looked at her disheveled appearance, and a lump formed in his throat. Lin Yu didn't want to say anything, so he walked around them and entered the house, but Xie Jingchen grabbed his wrist. His composure could no longer be maintained, and his voice was somewhat unsteady. "Lin Yu, don't you want to explain this to me?" Lin Yu opened his mouth almost mechanically. "Your Highness, it's exactly as you saw it." Xie Jingchen suddenly tightened his grip on her hand, furious to the point of laughing. "Good, very good. I truly underestimated you. Someone Lock her in the woodshed and let her reflect properly. The wedding will be held in 10 days. The suffocating feeling came like an icy tide, surging from all directions. Lin Yu trembled like a leaf, holding herself tightly, curled up on the cold and dirty ground. Rats rustled in the corner, gnawing at something. The sound was just like the dark mountain cave from her childhood. She had been captured by bandits and had to compete with rats for spoiled food. Don't be afraid, little fish. Don't be afraid. As long as I'm here, I won't let you suffer such pain again. Xie Jingchen's urgent voice rang in her memories. He held her tightly, embracing her as she had scratched herself in the darkness from a panic attack, soothing her repeatedly. She curled up in his arms, asking with a tearful voice, "What if one day you're gone?" He cupped her face in his hands, his eyes shining like stars. "Then you call my name, shout it loud, call it 100 times. No matter where I am across the seas and skies, I'll appear before you instantly." Xie Jingchen, Xie Jingchen. Lin Yu trembled and pressed her lips, issuing a faint call into the endless darkness. Outside the door, footsteps paused for a moment. Xie Jingchen heard that faint, mosquito-like call filled with tears, and clenched his fists tightly. He remembered her fear. A single let was almost about to slip out. He forced himself to turn around, his cold and harsh voice piercing through the door panel. "Xiaoyu, your disposition is too arrogant and defiant. You need to learn a lesson and remember it well." Footsteps resolutely faded away into the distance. After an indeterminate amount of time had passed. "Stop crying. Could you really call out the name of His Highness, the Crown Prince?" The charcoal room was pushed open slightly, and a maid threw in her letter, her words shattering her dreams. Lin Yu woke up with tears streaking her face, staring blankly for a long time before realizing where she was, then giving a bitter smile. Yes, His Highness, the Crown Prince. She had forgotten that they were no longer in that small mountain village, and had also forgotten that Xie Jingchen was the golden and jade-honored Crown Prince. What Xie Jingchen had said. How could the Crown Prince possibly care about it? Lin Yu fumbled to open the letter, using just a sliver of daylight from under the door to read by Xiao Yu. "Your parents will arrive in the capital in 10 days to take you home." At this moment, the tears in Lin Yu's eyes could no longer be held back and rolled down profusely. 10 days later was her wedding day, and also the day she would finally be free. She could finally leave this prison. Perhaps they knew that under such circumstances, Lin Yu couldn't hold out any longer. Xie Jingchen came to ask her in the evening, "Lin Yu, have you made your decision?" There was no response. "If you're not willing, I can also cancel the engagement." Still no response. And after a while, a low, hoarse voice came through. "Thank you, Your Highness, for your grace. This maiden's heart has been made up." Xie Jingchen was so angry he let out a cold laugh and swept away with his sleeves. He had given her so many choices. Yet Lin Yu was resolutely determined to leave him. All right, then he'll let Lin Yu know how people will treat her without his protection. For these 3 days, the meals served to her have been nothing but cold leftovers. Lin Yu was fed the same food as the horses in the compound, but she still forced herself to eat, constantly reminding herself that she couldn't collapse here. The woodshed was pitch dark, and she could only count the days by the time she came to deliver meals. 7 more days, and she could leave the capital. That day, the long-closed wood gate was finally opened. Lin Yu trembled like a startled rabbit, her eyes nearly unable to open from the blinding light. "Those few days have you looking much more pleasant." Lin Yu's eyes adjusted to the light before she could make out the person standing in front of her, Shen Wanyue. She waved her hand, and the maid brought out a jar of pills. Shen Wanyue smiled gently. "Senior sister specially found some rare pills from Western region's tribute. Younger sister has such deep blessings. Try out the effectiveness of these pills for me, whichever one you choose. Senior sister will reward you with that one." Lin Yu shook her head in terror and tried to retreat, but was firmly pinned down by the strong wet nurse. Rough hands forcibly pried open her mouth. On the first day, Lin Yu curled up on the ground, letting out bestial cries of pain. She felt as if she were being roasted over an open fire, her skin cracking inch by inch, her nails digging deep into the ground until they ground away into bloody, mangled flesh. The next day, searing pain exploded from deep within her limbs and joints. With each breath tugging at agonizing fragments of pain, she lay on the ground like a pile of, coughing up a large mouthful of dark red blood that splattered onto the dry hay. On the third day, she lay like a corpse with remaining sensation, yet unable to move even a single finger. Rats scurried past her side, and she could even feel their furry bodies rubbing against her ankle. The utmost helplessness and fear gnawed at her nerves. When the barn door was opened again and blinding sunlight poured in, only 2 days remained until the wedding. Lin Yu was dragged out. She had become emaciated, her form unrecognizable, as if a gentle breeze could knock her down. The once bright eyes were now lifeless, sunk deep into dark purple eye sockets. Looking at her swaying figure, Xie Jingchen's eyes flickered with a hint of surprise. Just a few days in the hayloft. I had someone arrange meals for her. How come? Shen Wanyue interjected at the right moment. I send someone every day to deliver meals to little sister Yu, but the servants who return say that all the food gets smashed clean. I suppose little sister Yu has formed connections with young Master Li, and the food from the Eastern Palace is no longer worthy of her eyes. Lin Yu's words were all blocked in her throat, turning into a mouthful of bloody, sweet, forget it. She told herself in her heart, after all, even if I speak up, he won't believe me anyway. As expected, Xie Jingchen's originally slightly pitiful expression also turned ugly. He glared at Lin Yu as the 4 words squeezed out between his teeth. Obstinate, Lin Yu simply tugged at the corners of his mouth, his eyes gazing toward the daylight outside the door. Everything was about to come to an end. 2 more days. In 2 days, it will be a permanent farewell. Boxes upon boxes of jewelry were carried into Lin Yu's desolate courtyard. Shen Wanyue sat on the main seat with an elegant posture, yet her eyes carried a pitying compassion akin to charity. Little sister, you're getting married in 2 days. As the crown princes, I must prepare you some decent dowry. Although your virtue has been lost, she changed her tone, but you still don't understand the proper etiquette of a married couple. Tonight, wait outside this palace and learn properly, so you won't cause your in-laws displeasure on your wedding night. That night, Lin Yu was forced to kneel outside the crown princess's sleeping quarters. Inside, sultry gasps and soft moans grew louder and louder. She didn't know how long she had been kneeling, her legs had long lost sensation. When inside finally came a lazy command, fetch water, she staggered to her feet, head down, and walked in. Xie Jingchen, wearing his night robe, scanned the familiar slender figure with a frown forming unconsciously on his brow. Filled with confusion, before he could take a closer look, he was drawn back by Shen Wanyue's soft, sweet voice. Shen Wanyue wrapped her arms around his neck, but her eyes glanced toward Lin Yu, who kept her head down. My husband, I've heard rumors. People outside are saying you've had physical contact with little fish. If your heart truly belongs to the little sister. She paused mid-sentence, her tone carrying just the right amount of that strange feeling in Xie Jingchen's heart was instantly replaced by inexplicable irritation. He tightened his arms, holding the warm, soft figure in his embrace even more tightly. Wanchu's body is delicate and tender, which is what makes me fall deeply in love. No one else can catch my eye. My greatest regret in life is being exiled to the countryside. And what I hate most are the entanglements that occur in the countryside. Xie Jingchen's eyes flashed with a hint of cruelty. On the day I welcomed Lin Yu back, I had already ordered everyone in that little village to be slaughtered to the last person. Those who know of my past shall die. if it weren't for her saving my life. Lin Yu's eyelashes trembled violently as they fell downward, her nails digging deeply into her palm. Lin Yu was struck by lightning. Her eyes suddenly widening in shock, the blood drained completely from her face. How could this be? How could this happen? It turned out that Xie Jingchen's excitement that day was not only because she had agreed to come to the capital, but also because all those who knew about his shameful past had completely disappeared from this world that day. Mingming's grandmother had even bought Xie Jingchen new shoes, blessing their couple's eternal love and unity. During the famine year when their family couldn't even afford to cook a meal, they survived only through the charity of their neighbors and fellow villagers. But now, they were all dead because of her. That is the place where little sister Fish grew up since childhood. She has done you a favor after all. What should we do if she finds out? They will not let her know. Bringing her to the capital to enjoy prosperity is already a favor to her. Lin Yu didn't know how she left. Her entire being was like a walking corpse, stepping back to her courtyard one step at a time. The last stumble sent her tumbling to the ground, her heart feeling as though it had been torn in two, the pain piercing through her very soul. Her eyes were swollen and red, yet desperately, not a single tear would flow. How could she be so foolish, so naive as to believe Xie Jingchen had no choice in the matter, so gullible as to believe his actions were forced upon him? Yet in this world, where could such things as no choice possibly exist? She loved him so much that she believed every word he said without question. Those days, Lin Yu moved through life in a daze. Shen Huanyue was very pleased with her docile and obedient behavior, and had someone bring her a wedding dress, Lin Yu silently changed into it. At the moment the wedding dress touched her body, countless sharp, piercing stings suddenly emanated from the inner layer of the fabric. It was as if thousands of fine needles were simultaneously piercing into her flesh. Her body stiffened abruptly, her face turning as pale as paper. Didn't you thank the crown prince's consort for her great grace? The wet nurse beside her harshly scolded. Lin Yu slowly bent his knees, enduring the pain in his body as he trembled and knelt to the ground. Thank you, Crown Princess. As the wet nurse just withdrew, a gloomy figure spoke from behind. You're getting married. And you're so happy about it. Xie Jingchen had silently stood at the door at some point, his eyes fixed intensely on the glaring red on her body. Lin Yu looked up at him, suppressing the hatred welling up in her eyes, which was almost bursting forth, transformed into a deeper and self-mockery. On such a joyous occasion, of course I would be happy. Happy. Xie Jingchen felt as if those two words had stabbed him deeply. His eyes were swirling with anger that she couldn't understand. Yeah. You're naturally happy, but what is your identity? You don't deserve to wear such magnificent wedding attire, he shouted fiercely. People, take off her clothes, bring her those coarse garments of country wenches. Only like this can they match your lowly identity. Lin Yu stood there like a soulless puppet, letting the rude maid strip off that wedding dress stained with her blood spots. One by one, cheap, rough, and even moldy coarse cloth garments were pulled over her body, only to be angrily rejected by Xie Jingchen. Ugly, absurdly tasteless. What are you even good for? Can't even pick out a wedding dress properly. He suddenly waved his sleeve, and the teapot shattered with a crash, porcelain fragments splattering everywhere. The maid was so frightened her soul nearly fled her body, trembling as she handed over a wedding dress that had been dug out from the bottom of the chest. A wedding dress with crooked stitching and clumsy mandarin ducks embroidered on it. Lin Yu's indifferent eyes finally rippled with emotion upon seeing that wedding gown. It was the wedding dress that Xie Jingchen, the man with amnesia, had clumsily made for her with his own hands, facing the candlestick. Xie Jingchen's gaze fell upon this wedding dress. His mind life flashed with those scenes he had deliberately buried deep in his memories. Xiaoyu, put it on. You are mine, Xiaoyu. Let's get married quickly. Okay, get out, all of you get out of here. he suddenly shoved everyone out of the room. The door slammed shut, leaving only the two of them. Lin Yu had remained expressionless throughout, simply watching him. He staggered forward, his hands trembling as he pulled Lin Yu into his embrace. "You still have a chance to repent. As long as you nod, I'll immediately help you destroy this marriage." His burning lips urgently branded her neck, his breath hot and chaotic. "I've raised you outside, given you the finest house, hidden you for a lifetime, just for you alone. How about it, just like before?" His hands uncontrollably reached to tear at the glaring wedding dress on her. Thick male fragrance mixed with the familiar cool scent from his body drifted over. Lin Yu's stomach churned violently. The images of humiliation, his disdainful words, the bloodshed in the small village. "Stay away from me." Lin Yu used all her strength to suddenly push him away, while simultaneously pulling out the wooden hairpin she had been hiding in her sleeve. It was a token of affection he had carved with his own hands years ago, engraved with both their names. Without hesitation, she stabbed it fiercely toward the arm he reached out to grab her with. The fabric tore apart, and a bright red streak of blood immediately appeared on Xie Jingchen's arm. He clutched his wound, staring at her in disbelief. "Fine, since you're so determined to get married, then get married. As long as you step through that door, you'll never set foot in the Eastern Palace again for the rest of your life." He slammed the door and left. Lin Yu collapsed to the ground from exhaustion, watching his silhouette and muttering, "Xie Jingchen, don't worry, I will never return in this life." The sky was still dark when Lin Yu had already finished dressing alone. She finally surveyed the room that had imprisoned her for months. Her gaze swept over the cold hearth in the corner. She walked over, crouched down, and lit the fire starter. One by one, she threw objects from an old wooden chest into the flames. First, it was a jade bracelet. Xie Jingchen accompanied her through the night market, and seeing that she liked it, he immediately exchanged all his savings for this cheap jade bracelet. She scolded him for being extravagant, but he simply put it on her clumsily and promised, "I'll definitely get you the best one in the future." Fifth, it was a piece of straw paper. Xie Jingchen once held her hand, teaching her to write their two names stroke by stroke. He always liked to tease her playfully with a troubled expression. "Little fish learns so slowly. The responsibility of educating our children will have to fall to me alone in the future." The eighth one was a golden hairpin. When Xie Jingchen regained his identity and came back to the village to fetch her, in front of everyone's eyes he intimately pinned the golden hairpin into her headu. "Xiaoyu, I'm here to take you home, our home." The fire burned brighter and brighter, watching as everything she once cherished turned to ash. A sense of relief she hadn't felt in a long time emerged in her heart. Daylight broke bright. The Eastern Palace's crimson gates stood wide open. A lone flower sedan chair came to a stop at the entrance. Lin Yu cast one final glance at the Crown Prince's residence before getting into the sedan chair without looking back. The wedding procession was already packed with curious commoners eager to witness the spectacle. And the first courtesan in the capital marries the first wastrel in the capital. You can't say it's not a perfect match. If she weren't riding on the Crown Prince's adopted sister, she could have been directly taken to the bridal chamber without even preparing a sedan chair. How truly pitiful. On her wedding day she had not even a maid by her side, and Lord Li's family had only sent an old coachman. Lin Yu heard these words filled with pity and mockery, but her heart had long been unable to stir even the slightest ripple. She even slightly curved her lips. It's okay, soon, all of this will have nothing to do with her. She is about to be free, far away from all the chaos. Strife, stay away from the capital, stay away from, she declared lie to the void. Xie Jingchen, farewell forever. The flower sedan became increasingly distant, until it completely disappeared at the street corner. At the same time, in the 7th hour, 10,000 nations paid homage, and the palace held a grand feast. Xie Jingchen sat at the banquet, distracted. At this moment, he was as if bewitched, his mind filled entirely with Lin Yu. What would she look like wearing that red dress? Was she currently sitting in the flower sedan, secretly crying? Might she regret it? Your Highness, Shen Wu called out softly, it's time for you to preside over the banquet. Xie Jingchen suddenly came back to his senses, suppressing his anxiety and barely maintaining his dignity, following the protocol accordingly. His movements were precise, his voice loud, yet his eyes were vacant, drifting toward the distance. The lengthy banquet had lasted for more than half. The envoy from the frontier state of Jiang, who was always arrogant, rose from his seat and raised his cup toward the emperor seated on the high throne. Thanks to His Majesty's great fortune, our country's pearl that had been scattered abroad for many years has finally been recovered. This is a fortunate event for the diplomatic relations between our two nations. Beside the envoy, the Crown Prince of Jiang slightly nodded his head. Xie Jingchen merely followed the crowd in raising his cup to celebrate. Xie Jingchen's gaze swept over the man, and an inexplicably vague sense of familiarity flashed through his heart, as if he had seen him somewhere before, but this thought vanished like a feather brushing by, immediately replaced by something more important. The flower sedan chair for Xiao Yu was already on the way. Is she really going to go and pay homage to someone else? The hand holding the cup trembled, knuckles turning white. Your Highness the Crown Prince, the ceremonial official reminded him again in a low voice. It was his turn to represent the royal family and ascend the high platform, where he would be worshipped by all nations. Before long, he would smoothly become the ruler of this country, ruling over the entire world. At that time, even if he officially took Lin Yu as his concubine, no one would dare say a word. Yes, Lin Yu. Before mounting the stage, he shouted harshly at his trusted guard, go bring Lin Yu back and tell her that the prince is no longer angry with her. The marriage will be called off. The guard hesitated and said, Your Highness, when Miss Lin got into the sedan chair this morning, she didn't hesitate at all. She would still. Xie Jingchen frowned and interrupted him. She was just being capricious and sulking with me at the time. Once she truly gets married, she'll definitely cry and beg me to take her back. She's good at everything, it's just that her temper is too fiery and stubborn. If we don't her temper, we don't know how many people she'll offend. From now on, if she wants to stand by my side, she must understand the customs of the capital. The punishment she received is already enough. She'll come to realize my good intentions. Go quickly. The guards dare not speak any further. They accept the order and depart, watching the guards disappear below the altar. Xie Jingchen's taut nerves seem to relax for a moment. He forces himself to stand straight again, trying to pull his attention back to this sacred ceremony. However, as time ticks by second, the prayers and chants below, the offerings presented by the feudal lords, all become blurred noise. He stared intently at the direction where the guards had disappeared, every second feeling like an eternity. He suddenly thought of Lin Yu's calm and distant behavior over this period. The indifference in her eyes when she looked at him. He knew that Lin Yu had suffered much these past few days, but as long as he ascended to this position, he would surely make amends for her. But he always felt that something was developing in a direction he could not control. The next moment, under the horrified gazes of the envoys from all the countries, Xie Jingchen paused the ceremony and rushed down from the platform. Your Highness, Xie Jingchen could hear no sound at the moment. I have the finest horses, only I can go personally, and then I might just catch up with her in time. Yes, little fish has a big temper. She definitely won't come back until I go comfort her in person. His mind was filled with only one thought. Hurry up a bit more. We must definitely stop her before she marries someone else. When he spurred his horse forward at full gallop, knocking down countless street vendors along the way, he finally burst through to the Li family's main gate. The lone flowered sedan chair remained stationary in its place. Several servants from the Li estate who were the bride stood around the chair, looking at each other in confusion, unsure of what to do. Xie Jingchen dismounted from his horse and gently knocked on the sedan chair door. Xiaoyu, I won't let you get married now. Can you please stop being angry with me? Come back with me, and I'll promise you anything. Inside the sedan chair, deathly silence. Xiaoyu, speak up. Don't scare me like this. Xie Jingchen trembled as he suddenly pulled back the glaring red curtain of the sedan chair. The interior of the sedan chair was completely empty. Xie Jingchen only felt a roaring in his head, his fingertips hanging at his sides, trembling uncontrollably. How could this be? His little fish. Xie Jingchen suddenly turned around and pushed open the door to the Li family. At the Li family's wedding banquet, Li Jiahui was drunk, red-faced, staggering unsteadily. His mouth continued to curse and mutter, "Such a disgrace to that bitch's face. How dare she run away from our wedding? This makes me the laughingstock of the entire capital city. And the last time I asked for her, she actually stabbed me and fled. No woman has ever dared to resist me like that before. I'll make her pay these two debts back tenfold. When I find her, I'll strip her bare and humiliate her publicly." The attendants beside Li Jiahui saw him standing behind, his eyes filled with such malice that it nearly suffocated everyone present. Trembling, he grabbed his sleeve and softly reminded, "Young master, don't say any more." But Li Jiahui impatiently shook off his hand. "What? You've also been bewitched by that foxish woman?" Before he could finish speaking, Xie Jingchen kicked him hard in the chest, eyes bloodthirsty and filled with killing intent. "Speak! Where have you hidden my little fish?" Li Jiahui's body crashed into the banquet, completely disheveled. "Who is it who dares to kick the young master? I will send you straight to hell right now." But upon seeing the robe adorned with dragon patterns before him, his mind suddenly cleared. Sweat-drenched hair, he knelt on the ground. "Your Highness, I didn't mean that just now. I really don't know what happened. Our Li family never saw that lowborn Miss Lin enter the house. I really don't know where she actually went." Xie Jingchen looked at him, his face gradually turning pale. So that day, his little fish had actually been injured trying to resist. But what did he say? Thinking of Lin Yu's numb and despairing gaze, it felt as though a giant hand was mercilessly squeezing Xie Jingchen's heart. It almost drove him to unbearable pain. What had he done? He thought Lin Yu had fallen for someone else, not only humiliating her recklessly but also knowing full well that she was afraid of the dark. He still unhesitatingly locked her in the woodshed. Why hadn't he asked her a few more questions at that time? Why hadn't he believed her? Why wouldn't she tell him anything? As long as she had spoken up, he would certainly have taken care of things for her. Xie Jingchen looked down at him from above, as if viewing a lifeless object. "Tell me every single detail of what happened that day, without omitting anything." Li Jiahui saw the killing intent in his eyes and, without thinking twice, knelt trembling before Xie Jingchen. "Your Highness, I swear I will tell you. That day, someone gave me a note saying I should meet them at a restaurant. Then Lady Lin pushed open the door and came in. The official saw that she had a good figure, so he developed evil intentions. But Your Highness, I haven't done anything. Miss Lin wounded me and then fled. I truly didn't know she was Your Highness's woman. Your Highness, please spare my life." Xie Jingchen's heart grew heavier with each word he heard. In a flash, an idea struck him. When he spoke, his voice was as cold as a frozen lake. That handkerchief from that day, was it really hers? "If you so much as lie, you die." Li Jiahui was already drenched in cold sweat. "The handkerchief from that day, it was given to me by a maid serving the crown prince's wife. She said she was delivering it on her behalf, so I naturally." Every word was carved into sharp blades, torturing Xie Jingchen's heart. How could things turn out this way? How could it be Shen Huanyue? Why her? Xie Jingchen's face at this moment was as cold as a demon crawling out of hell. Guards. Li Jiahui forcibly seized a civilian woman, bullied the people and deceived the authorities. Lock him up in the death prison. Li Jiahui's face was deathly pale. Completely losing the arrogance he had displayed earlier, like a dog, he knelt on the ground begging for mercy. Your Highness, spare my life. Your Highness, I know I was wrong, Your Highness. But after Xu Jingchen finished speaking, he left without even looking back. Li Jiahui collapsed in despair on the ground. He knew it was all over. The guests at the wedding banquet were also stunned by this turn of events, unable to find their bearings. The prince, who was usually as gentle as jade, suddenly had such a moment. After Xie Jingchen returned to the mansion, he went directly to Lin Yu's courtyard. Since he brought her to the capital, he had purchased many items, each one carefully selected by his own hands. Even though he had recovered his memories, he had never once considered abandoning her. It was the gossip and idle talk of those around him. They said that a woman from the countryside could never befit the grand stage. How could His Highness the Crown Prince have such eyes? So he gradually felt ashamed. Perhaps the position of principal wife had been given to a noble maiden from a prestigious family. There were no more luxurious items sent here. And now, this room was completely empty. Everything related to her had been cleared out and taken away, as if she truly hated him. Not even a trace of thought was left for him. His little fish really left. Xie Jingchen collapsed dejectedly onto the cold ground. His aimless gaze suddenly falling upon a pile of ashes in the corner, but it hadn't burned completely clean. Xie Jingchen saw a corner that remained, and with trembling hands, he carefully took out whatever was inside. That was a hairpin that had been burned in half, along with a calligraphy and painting. At this moment, those memories that Xie Jingchen had deliberately forgotten surged up like waves. Xie Jingchen must love Lin Yu for a lifetime, with this hairpin as witness. Xie Jingchen vows to protect Lin Yu for all of his life, through life and death, never abandoning her. Xie Jingchen's head throbbed as if it would burst, unable to help but recall Lin Yu's increasingly dull and numb gaze, making it hard to breathe. He had clearly sworn an oath to protect Lin Yu for a lifetime. So why had he gradually broken his promise? No, there was still a chance. As long as he could find her, he would never let her be hurt again. Isn't she the one who wanted to marry herself? Who wanted legitimacy? He would risk everything to take her home as his wife, making her his legitimate wife. As long as that's the case, his little fish will surely soften and return to his side. She loves him so much, she will definitely forgive him. Even if she dies, she can only die by his side. Xie Jingchen raised his hand and gave orders to his secret guards. Announce my decree. The entire city is to be placed under strict quarantine starting today, until the person is found. Yes, after giving orders to his secret guards, Xie Jingchen carefully stored the hairpin away and turned to leave the room. He was just about to go ask the people who usually served Lin Yu if they knew anything. Just after leaving the hospital, I heard several servants whispering in the corridor. Some of them were still holding the explicit pictures of Lin Yu that had spread throughout the city. Lord Li really has a big heart, a shameless woman known to everyone in the city, and he still brought her home. Doesn't he mind getting dirty? You don't know, the crown prince and that whore have an affair. That's why the crown princess dislikes her. Lord Li marrying her is just doing the crown princess a favor. Yeah, when I was serving His Highness before, I clearly heard the intimate sounds of two people together from inside the house. Just fetching water alone required several trips. The maid Xiao Yi beside Lin Yu was surprised. Ah, does His Highness like her? When I followed Lin Yu to the office before, I personally heard the magistrate say that those who mistreated her were arranged by His Highness. At this point, Xie Jingchen's mind exploded with a loud bang, instantly becoming a complete mess. So, she knew everything all along. Knowing that he had arranged thugs to humiliate her, knowing that turning her into a whore was his doing, knowing that he had deliberately sent people to destroy her virtue, so, she would no longer be willing to speak when facing her own doubts. In a daze, Xie Jingchen thought back to their life in the countryside. Back then, he was not a crown prince, but simply her Jingchen. Their marriage was harmonious, from the fields to the small brick alleys. Enough to make every young girl who hopes for love envy with tears in her eyes. They didn't have to care about others' opinions, didn't have to consider damage to their reputation, didn't have to mind social status or family background. But after coming to the capital, external voices grew louder, and the shackles of the crown prince's identity became increasingly heavy. No one knew when it started, but the smile on Lin Yu's face had never appeared again. All of this was because of him. Because he began to look down on Lin Yu's status, he started doing everything he could to make Lin Yu feel she wasn't worthy of the position of crown prince's consort, doing everything in his power to suppress her, so she would willingly become his unnamed and unmarried mistress. Xie Jingchen suddenly felt immense regret. If he hadn't arranged all these things, wouldn't they have never reached this point today? Hearing what the servant had said, Xie Jingchen finally realized that her life in the crown prince's residence hadn't been as good as he had imagined. Everyone looked down on her. She was alone, burning all her love toward herself. But even she herself bullied him. Xie Jingchen, as the crown prince, rarely had regrets in his life. He was the crown prince, and a slight misstep would mean total defeat, so he had to quickly cut off that thread of hesitation in his heart. So when he was ambushed and fell off a cliff by his imperial elder brother back then, he had only sighed at his own carelessness, but this time, he regretted it. Xie Jingchen didn't finish listening. He walked up to the man and said, "Since this mouth won't speak, there's no need to keep it anymore." The servants trembled all over, kneeling on the ground begging for mercy. Your Highness, servant knows the mistake now. Your Highness, spare our lives." Xie Jingchen understood that the root cause of everything stemmed from himself. He coldly said, "Get the hell out of here." The servants scrambled away on their hands and knees, afraid that Xie Jingchen might regret his words next. Xie Jingchen called over the maid Xiao Yi. "Tell me, what else do you know about Xiao Yu?" Xiao Yi's mind flashed with his disdain and neglect toward Lin Yu, and cold sweat immediately poured down his body. Aren't they all saying that the crown prince only kept her in the mansion out of pity? Then why did he care so much now? Xiao Yi's mind suddenly flashed with a realization, and he quickly said, "My lord, Lady Lin, the maid previously asked me to deliver a letter, and I overheard Lady Lin crying out for her parents, crying about how she had ruined the entire village." At this moment, the only glimmer of hope in Xie Jingchen's heart shattered, but he still comforted himself. Thinking it couldn't be true, his little fish was just missing home. He did it so secretly, this orphan girl wouldn't know. The people of that village raised Lin Yu from childhood and gave Lin Yu a second life. It was one of the few places Lin Yu could return to. That was her home. Xie Jingchen knew exactly. If she really knew it was him who slaughtered that village, she would never forgive him again. From now on, both up to the heavens and down to the underworld, he would never find her again. Xie Jingchen was unwilling to give up, and sent people to the old site of the village overnight. Subordinate reported, "Your Highness, we found no trace of Miss Lin, but someone has erected a new tombstone for each of the villagers there, each inscribed with a name." After hearing this, the suppressed anger in Xie Jingchen's heart could no longer be contained. A surge of blood heat rushed up, and he violently spat out a mouthful of blood. She really knew. "Xiao Yu, my little Yu, Your Highness." The guards quickly rushed to support him, preventing Xie Jingchen from falling to the ground. Xie Jingchen brushed him away and, with trembling hands, wiped away the bloodstain at the corner of his mouth. On his face, which was usually incomprehensible to others. He showed fear and helplessness for the first time in his life. "Tell me, did I really do something wrong to little fish?" The guard hesitated for a moment, then carefully spoke up. "Your Highness, you are the future heir to the throne. It is only natural that you would not want those matters to become known, but my subordinate believes that Miss Lin is not the type of person who would casually broadcast your Highness's suffering to the world." Yes, his little fish was that kind of person. It was him. It was his pitiful sense of pride that had clouded his judgment. Xie Jingchen smiled bitterly, a sense of helpless frustration rising in his heart. His little fish dared to love and hate, could let go when necessary. Possessing the courage that he himself lacked, he used her kind heart to bring her to the capital. But he still cared about his reputation, afraid of gossip and rumors. After regaining my memory, I didn't dare admit that I had actually fallen in love with a pig butcher, a person whose identity and aura were completely different from mine in every way, so I kept deceiving myself in front of others. What I like is just her body. I'm just afraid that the things from before my amnesia be known. I'm just repaying a debt of gratitude, but if he truly didn't want the world to know about those things after losing his memory, he could have mercilessly slaughtered everyone like he did the villagers. Only dead people can truly keep secrets, but he couldn't bring himself to harm Lin Yu. He should have admitted it long ago. Should have admitted that whether it was Xie Jingchen before losing his memory or Xie Jingchen after losing his memory, he had loved Lin Yu from the very beginning until the end. Xie Jingchen dispatched additional personnel to continuously search for Lin Yu's traces. However, all reports that came back were uniformly the same: no news of Lin Yu's whereabouts. During this period, he had been in a daze. Even when a group of distinguished guests suddenly left the banquet hall during that feast, he only dealt with it hastily, not at all appeased. Shen Huanyue felt helpless watching him behave this way. Even His Majesty, who had always regarded him as his pride, was dissatisfied. Here is the translation. This respectable crown prince has been tormenting himself to such an extent because of a low-born pig-slaughtering woman. He abandoned the esteemed guests from 10,000 countries to pursue a woman. Where should I put my face? Where should I put the face of the imperial family? From today on, you no longer need to attend court. You are confined to the crown prince's residence. You may only leave when you have figured things out. Xie Jingchen knelt on the ground and said loudly, "Your subject accepts the decree." Not only them, even Xie Jingchen himself felt he had gone mad. To ascend to the position of crown prince, he had sacrificed so much. But now that he heard he was under house arrest, he actually felt a sense of relief at first. This way he would have more energy to search for his little fish, upon returning to the crown prince's residence. Xie Jingchen came to visit Shen Huanyue with a box of jewelry. During this period he had been busy looking for Lin Yu, and it had been many days since he last came to visit her. Anyway, she was his legitimate crown prince's consort by right. But just as Xie Jingchen arrived at the door, two voices clearly came from within the partially open door. One of them was cold and harsh, completely unlike the dignified, courteous, gentle, and virtuous crown prince's consort he had imagined. I never expected a pig butcher girl to actually have some skill in captivating the crown prince so thoroughly. I should never have spared her life back then. Your Majesty is still too kind. During those days when she was locked in the woodshed, you shouldn't have just made her test poisons and starve her. You should have given her a vial of poison to end her life. That way, she would no longer be able to affect your Majesty in the slightest. Xie Jingchen's box crashed to the ground. His face dark and terrifying. No wonder Lin Yu had become so emaciated when she came out that day. He had foolishly thought that was just her tactic to draw his attention. The door was violently slammed open by a tremendous force. Xie Jingchen strode in with long strides, his eyes icy with frost. Shen Huanyue, you've truly given this lone one a great gift. Shenhuanyue's face turned deathly pale, but she still forced herself to maintain the etiquette befitting a crown prince's consort. Speaking in a trembling voice, "Your Highness, I'm afraid I don't quite understand what you mean." Xie Jingchen sneered coldly. "Don't understand. Standing behind you is Chancellor Shen, and I cannot act against you for the time being. But what happened to little fish? Your Highness, I will make you pay back 10 times over." Xie Jingchen raised his hand, pointing at the trembling maid who was shaking like a leaf. "Men, drag this low-born wench away and beat her to death." "No, Your Highness. Have mercy, Empress, Empress, save me." Upon hearing these words, wailing and screaming filled the room. The maid let out a blood-curdling scream as she was roughly dragged away by 2 guards. Shenhuanyue watched helplessly as her most trusted subordinate was dealt with like a piece of rags. The immense fear and humiliation making her body go numb with cold, she almost collapsed. She opened her mouth, wanting to defend herself, to plead for mercy, to invoke her father's name. However, Xie Jingchen's cold, sharp gaze didn't linger on her for even a moment. He didn't even deign to look at her again, as if gazing at her for another moment would make him dirty. He coldly and deliberately pronounced her fate word by word: "Princess Consort Shen Wn, afflicted with a grave illness. Effective immediately, without the Emperor's decree, you may not step beyond this hall. No one is permitted to visit you. Those who defy this order, beheading." Shenhuanyue threw her arms around Xie Jingchen's hand, trying to gain his mercy with her tearful gaze. Here is the translation. Xie Jingchen merely tugged at his corner of the mouth in a smile that was neither genuine nor false. "Since the crown prince's wife has fallen ill with a terrible disease, I will definitely have someone test the medicine on you properly." The palace doors slowly closed. All of Shen Wu's last bit of strength was completely drained. She could no longer bear it. Thud as she fell heavily onto the cold bed, the heavy city gate slowly closed behind her, cutting off the hustle and oppression of the capital. Lin Yu pulled down the carriage curtain, shutting out the sight of the entire city on high alert. She knew this was Xie Jingchen's doing. He always acted this way, allowing any existence that slipped beyond control, yet he clearly despised his own existence so much. She fled far from the capital, taking with her all the embarrassment of their relationship. No one would ever know that he had once been with a pig-slaughtering woman. "Isn't this fine? Why keep holding on to her? Why can't you let her go, Lin Yu?" "But it's okay. No matter how Xie Jingchen tries to stop her, she will never be trapped again. Look at the moon." A warm and powerful hand covered her slightly cool palm, the voice steady yet filled with concern. "Don't be afraid. As long as your imperial elder brother is here, no one can harm you even the slightest bit." Lin Yu raised her head and met the gaze of Jiangguo's crown prince, her blood-related elder brother, Prince Jiang. That look was filled with the excitement of a long-separated reunion, the treasuring of something regained, and deep sympathy for her suffering. "Your Majesty." Lin Yu's heart was filled with a wave of warmth. Years of solitude and wandering finally had a place to settle down once again. This time, she was no longer alone. This time, someone would stand up for her. This time she truly had her own home. This time she was finally no longer lonely. "We're going home." Prince Jiang squeezed her hand firmly, his tone resolute. Lin Yu suppressed the sting at the corner of her eyes and nodded. The carriage smoothly exited the city gate. And when they passed by the village, the tears in Lin Yu's eyes could no longer be controlled. "Your Majesty, I want to go see them." Lin Yu knew that after those people who had watched her grow up were slaughtered to extinction by Xie Jingchen, she would always have nightmares. The imperial prince tenderly held her in his arms, and sent people to erect tombstones for the villagers. Standing again in a familiar place, Lin Yu forced a smile. "Thank you, Imperial Prince, for helping me." Upon hearing her words, the Crown Prince gently nodded and ruffled her hair. "They have taken care of you for over 10 years. and your majesty should also go to thank them for raising and saving your life. Back then, when there was a rebellion in Jiang Kingdom, the rebels ambushed His Highness. And that's how you accidentally went missing. If it weren't for them, we might never have had the chance to be reunited as a family again. Lin Yu knelt directly in front of the gravestone. Self-reproach in the heart, it's all her fault. If it weren't for her saving Xie Chen, they wouldn't have died. Little fish will definitely make the culprit who killed you pay with their blood. Thank you very much over these years. Lin Yu cried for a very long time. Prince Jiang of Jiang guarded silently by her side, letting her vent her emotions, until her voice became hoarse and unrecognizable. He then helped her up. Zhao Yu, we cannot change what has already happened. You must live well in the present. I think they would also want you to pull yourself together. Lin Yu, no, now she should be called Jiang Zhao Yu. She nodded, her eyes filled with an unprecedented strength. The carriage rushed for several days before finally reaching the capital of the Jiang Kingdom. From a distance, seeing the city gates, Jiang Zhaoyu's heart couldn't help but rise with anxiety. However, as the carriage drew near, the scene before her made her hold her breath in an instant. At the city gate, banners fluttered in the wind, and ceremonial guards stood solemnly in formation. Right at the front, the Emperor Jiang and Empress Jiang had personally come to welcome them. Before the carriage had even come to a complete stop, the Empress Jiang had lifted her skirt and rushed over in a hurried stride, disregarding all propriety. My Zhao Yu, my child. Jiang Huang also stepped forward quickly. This majestic emperor's eyes were red with tears as he struggled to contain his emotion, gently stroking her head with his large hand. His voice choked with emotion. It's good you're back. It's good you're back. You've suffered, my child. Father, mother. Jiang Zhao Yu buried herself in her mother's fragrant embrace, feeling the warmth of her father's broad palm. The she had longed for and yearned for over more than a dozen years finally returned to her on this day. The accumulated loneliness and pain seemed to have found an outlet, tears silently surging forth. It turned out, being cherished so unconditionally by someone was this feeling. The little fish finally had a home. Back in the Jiang Kingdom's imperial palace, Jiang Zhaoyu's life underwent a complete transformation. Her status transformed from a humble pig butcher to a noble princess, enjoying rich clothing and food, surrounded by servants. Emperor Jiang and Empress Jiang could not help but shower her with the affection they had missed giving over the years, flooding her palace with a continuous stream of precious jewels, exquisite treasures, and beautiful garments. One day, as courtiers presented her with several trays of dazzling jewelry, Jiang Zhaoyu gently pushed them away. She walked before her father and mother, offering them a solemn bow. Father Emperor, Mother Queen, your kindness fills my heart with gratitude. These precious treasures and magnificent robes please me very much, but what I desire most is not these things. The emperor hurriedly said, What does Zhao Yu wish for? As long as you speak it, your father Emperor and Mother Queen will surely find it for you. Jiang Zhao Yu took a deep breath and gathered his courage. I wish to read books. Reading books. Empress Jiang was somewhat surprised. A look of reminiscence and a trace of faint regret appeared in Jiang Zhaoyu's eyes. When I was a child in the village, what I envied most was the man next door who could go to the private school to study. Back then, women weren't allowed to attend school, and our family didn't have extra money. I could only sneak by the window of the private school while gathering pig fodder, listening to the master teach and learning a few characters, a few lines of poetry. Empress Jiang immediately stood up and walked over to her side, taking her hand. Dear child, what's so difficult about this? Your son's eagerness to learn is a good thing. Tomorrow, no, today I will invite the finest grand tutor for you. I'll summon the most talented noble ladies from the capital to enter the palace and study with you. When Jiang Zhaoyu entered the bright study specially prepared for her with some trepidation, The expected disdain and mockery did not appear. The noble ladies summoned to the palace as companions for reading, though of noble birth. All had excellent manners and education. They had long heard the story of this princess who had fallen among the people and endured countless hardships returning home, their eyes filled with curiosity, more so with friendliness and a barely perceptible admiration. When Jiang Jiaoyu, princess, is truly remarkable. Killing pigs requires great strength, and even ordinary men may not do it skillfully. Princess was able to stand on her own feet under such circumstances and is so studious, truly a woman who doesn't fall short of men. Other noble ladies also nodded in agreement, their eyes showing no trace of disdain, but rather sincere admiration. Jiang Jiaoyu was stunned. In the capital city, her pig killer identity was a stain of shame, but here it had become proof of her resilience and strength. It turned out that being accepted and respected felt like this. She could finally stand tall. Learning and living as Jiang Jiaoyu, not as the pig killer or anyone else's appendage, she could embrace this belated, truly her own world. In just half a month, Jiang Jiaoyu underwent a complete transformation, becoming increasingly confident and radiant. That day, she had just returned from school when Empress Jiang smiled and grabbed her hand, her eyes filled with a hint of mystery and anticipation. "Jiaoyu, someone has traveled thousands of miles back to see you." Jiang Jiaoyu asked with confusion. "Who?" "Tuo Ba Yuan, the only son of General Tuo Ba, and also, your fiancé arranged by your mother's womb. We were able to find you so easily precisely because of him. This boy has waited for you for over a decade, never giving up his search for you. He is currently in the northern frontier. Jiaoyu, do you want to meet him?" Jiang Jiaoyu couldn't describe what she was feeling in her heart, but she knew that upon hearing this name, her heart involuntarily trembled. She understood better than anyone else what it was like to wait for someone. Looking at her mother's gentle questioning gaze, Jiang Jiaoyu fell silent for a moment. The past wounds still remain, but a new life and new possibilities are slowly unfolding before her. She needs an answer, and she also needs to give herself a chance. So she gently leaned against Queen Jiang's embrace and nodded. "Mother, I wish to see him." It would still take more than half a month to travel from the northern region to Jiang State. During this time, Jiang Jiaoyu, while studying, with the support of the Jiang Emperor, vigorously promoted women's education and established girls' schools. She wanted to give women who were unable to read the right to freely read and practice calligraphy. She didn't want the women of her country to be ignorant and bullied like she herself had been. Therefore, Jiang Jiaoyu took this matter very seriously. Once the campus location was finalized, she would visit the progress every few days. She liked to climb up the nearby hill and stand on the short cliff to look down, so she could take in the entire college campus architecture at a glance. She really loved watching this scene, so she never missed it regardless of wind or rain. But the mountain slope soil was soaked through by rain, and when she stepped on it, she couldn't maintain her balance and her body crashed uncontrollably into a nearby rock. Just as she was about to crash onto the hard stone, a strong hand encircled her waist. In the next second, she collided into a warm embrace. A pair of beautiful amber eyes entered her field of vision. "How coincidental, miss. We meet again." The hands released her once she stood steady. Applying just the right amount of pressure to support her small upper arm, the drizzling rain enveloped the two of them thus, the oil paper umbrella that had slipped from their hands being picked up and held over Jiang Jiaoyu's head. Jiang Jiao initially only felt that this person seemed somewhat familiar. When their eyes met again, those beautiful eyes triggered a wave of memories that crashed over her instantly. She had seen this person a few years ago. At that time, Xie Jingchen sold calligraphy and paintings daily to supplement the family income, so she would go up the mountain to pick mushrooms and wild vegetables to save on expenses. But one day, caught off guard, She stepped into a hunter's trap. Beneath the thick layer of leaves lay a pit 2 or 3 meters deep, and she fell into it, nearly giving up hope. When the moon rose, she finally heard voices and began to desperately call for help. The man only poked his head out, but soon threw down a vine. "Girl, are you all right? I'll pull you out." Later he rescued her, and in the hazy moonlight, she finally saw her savior's face. His eyebrows and eyes were deep and profound, and he didn't look like a person from Yang State. On the way down the mountain, she also curiously asked, "Sir, you don't seem to be from Yang State." He simply smiled. "I am a Jiang person, and I came here only to find a person." "What person?" "A very important person. If she grew up safely, she should be about the same age as this young lady now. I hope that when she's wandering and suffering outdoors, someone will still be willing to help her." These memories were suddenly brought to the surface. Jiang Jiaoyu stared blankly for a moment, then suddenly laughed. "How coincidental, my lord. We meet again." Perhaps the man's gaze was too intense, making Jiang Jiaoyu unable to help but ask again, "Did you find her?" The man lowered his eyes, the corners of his eyes slightly reddening. "I found her, but she seems to have forgotten me." The pain in his words was so clear, and Jiang Jiaoyu was just about to comfort him when she saw him smile at her briefly as he looked up. "But it's all right. From the moment she was still in her mother's womb, I had already decided she was my wife, so no matter how long it takes for her to accept me, I'm willing to wait." Jiang Jiaoyu met the man's intense gaze with some confusion. She wanted to ask something else, when a servant's voice rang out from beside her. "Princess, princess, where are you?" "Princess, the ground is slippery in the rain. Be careful not to twist your ankle. Let me take you out." Jiang Jiaoyu was just about to refuse when the man gently encircled her thigh and lifted her up in his arms, the umbrella leaning diagonally against the man's shoulder. "Come on, they must be getting anxious." Jiang Jiaoyu was suddenly lifted off the ground, and the sudden sensation of weightlessness made her instinctively wrap her arms around the man's neck, listening to his vibrating chest cavity. For some reason, her face felt warm. She whispered her gratitude, then "Thank you." The response she received was a man's soft laugh, along with the tightening of his grip around her. The man handed her over to the attendants intact, only then feeling at ease to leave. After returning to the palace, Empress Jiang heard about her near-fallen injury on the mountain, and hurried to see her. Seeing that Princess Jiang Jiaoyu was unharmed, she let out a sigh of relief. "Jiaoyu, you nearly frightened me to death." Jiang Jiaoyu pouted and leaned against her chest like a spoiled child. "Mother, it's my fault for making you worry." She then told her mother everything about that man. The Empress was somewhat surprised. He traveled from the northern frontier, which takes half a month. Yet he only took 10 days. He's the one I told you about, Tuoba Yuan, the man you arranged for me to marry. Jiang Jiaoyu never expected that he would actually be Tuoba Yuan. Empress Jiang captured all the astonishment in her eyes. "Jiaoyu, what do you think of that child?" Jiang Jiaoyu didn't even hear those words at first. When her identity was revealed, she immediately recalled several years ago. That young man, under the moonlight, gently lowered his eyes and said he was looking for someone very, very important. And today those eyes had a hint of red, saying they found him, but she no longer recognized him. So, was it really her? Jiang Jiaoyu was dazed for a moment, snapping back to reality when he looked at Empress Jiang's face. "The person is very good," Empress Jiang sighed in relief. Earlier she had been worried that the two children wouldn't get along well, but it seemed she had been overthinking it. Then by the moon. If there's no rejection, let's try to get along with him in the future, whether it was by design from Queen Jiang or not. These days Tuoba Yuan kept coming to the school for one reason or another. He followed Jiang Jiaoyu in promoting the construction of the school. Meeting again, he didn't mention it, and she didn't ask. Tuoba Yuan simply accompanied her, as she buried herself in paperwork, devoting herself to the school's blueprints and regulations to the point of neglecting sleep and meals. Tuoba Yuan would always silently appear, carefully preparing her favorite meals and offering her guidance. "Little princess, after you've finished your busy work, it's time to step out of the school and explore the mountains and rivers of Jiang State. Would you like me to take you horseback riding in the western mountains?" When she occasionally shut herself away due to nightmares haunting her, Tuoba Yuan would appear on the catalpa tree outside her palace walls, showering her with petals for her next blossom rain. "Little princess, look, these flowers all come rushing to please you." When she was busy working on the construction site with the carpenters, carrying lumber and discussing details without regard for her status, Tuoba Yuan would also roll up his sleeves without hesitation and join them, his amber eyes shining brilliantly in the sunlight. "Wherever you are, whatever you do, I am willing to walk alongside you." Under the gentle companionship and care like spring rain, the ice in Jiang Zhaoyue's heart gradually melted away, her smile appeared more and more often on her face, and her eyes became increasingly clear and bright. Tuoba Yuan did not possess contempt for common people, nor did he have dominance over the powerful, nor did he exhibit that lofty and superior demeanor. It seems the Empress Dowager was right. Such a wonderful person like Tuoba Yuan. Anyone who gets to know him would fall in love with him. Upon learning of his daughter's transformation, the emperor was greatly pleased and immediately issued an edict. A parent-child reunion feast will be held in 3 days to announce Princess Jiang Zhaoyue's identity to the whole world. The imperial palace buzzed with preparations for a grand feast. Tuoba Yuan feared that Jiang Zhaoyu would be bored by the tedious etiquette, so he found an excuse, took her slightly cool hand, and led her to sneak out of the palace gates. The streets were bustling and noisy, and gossip inevitably drifted into their ears along the way. "Have you heard? The newly crowned emperor of Yangqiao is absolutely mad. For half a year, he's been searching all over the empire for a woman, not to mention, they say he even imprisoned his own father for opposing him over a woman, wanting to depose him as crown prince, but he just rebelled and took the throne himself. Isn't his former crown prince's wife a woman named Shenhuanyue? How come he has another wife? I heard that the one he truly fell in love with was a country girl who worked as a pig butcher. For the sake of that woman, he overturned the entire Yang dynasty." Jiang Zhaoyue's footsteps paused slightly. She thought that hearing about Xie Jingchen again would make her feel terrified and anxious, and fall into fear once more. However, when those messages about him finally reached her ears, she realized that her heart was now completely calm. Aside from the desire for revenge, it turned out that letting go of Xie Jingchen didn't even take a year. She had been too foolish before, taking so long to find the right key and escape the cage. While she was lost in thought, someone took her hand beside her. The head met Tuoba Yuan's gaze. "Come on, little princess, I'll take you to release floating lanterns. I heard that making a wish to the river god while releasing the lanterns will make your heart's desire come true." Tuoba Yuan walked straight toward the largest stall and smiled gently at the vendor. "Old man, I'll take all these floating lanterns." The vendor hurriedly packed up dozens of lotus lanterns, his face beaming with joy. "Sir is truly kind to his lady." Tuoba Yuan curved his lips and presented the lotus lantern to Jiang Zhaoyu like a treasure. The eager child eagerly said, "Little princess, quickly write down all your wishes. Today the river god will surely grant you every one of your wishes." Jiang Zhaoyu watched him display such rare childlike innocence and couldn't help but burst into laughter. "What if the river god thinks I'm too greedy and refuses to grant my wish?" Tuoba Yuan didn't hesitate to blurt out, "Then I'll fulfill it for you. Whether you want stars or the moon, I'll pick them down for you." Jiang Zhaoyue's heart suddenly skipped. The flower that had withered in her heart for so long seemed to be infected by his smile. slowly reviving. Tuoba Yuan was afraid she would see. Quickly writing it down and placing the lotus lantern into the river, Jiang Jiaoyu slowly wrote down the wish she had longed for before. First wish. May His Majesty and Her Majesty be in good health, blessed with long life and prosperity, and may the state of Jiang experience favorable weather and everlasting prosperity. Second wish. May I become strong enough to protect those I love and bless my people. Third wish. May all women in the world be able to attend school and understand reason, break free from shackles, and not fear gossip and slander. Fourth wish. Seeing that she wasn't writing, Tuoba Yuan seemed even more anxious than she was. Little princess, hurry up. When more people come, we'll have to wait in line to make our wishes. Jiang Jiaoyu deliberately placed the first few lotus lanterns into the river first, but didn't move the one in her hand anymore. Tuoba Yuan looked puzzled. Little princess, what are you doing? Jiang Jiaoyu held up the river lantern, her eyes looking at him filled with stars. My fourth wish. I want to know what wish you just made. Tuoba Yuan's face flushed with a light red, and for a moment he actually didn't dare to meet her gaze. Jiang Jiaoyu's smile deepened, and she deliberately drawled out the question. Our towering and all-powerful young general. What wish did you actually make? Is it so shameful to mention? Tuoba Yuan looked at the mischief in her eyes and knew she was deliberately trying to tease him. He took a deep breath, his gaze becoming firm and gentle once more. He reached out his hand and gently took Jiang Jiaoyu's hand that was holding the lamp, writing together with her hand on the fourth lamp. May the princess and Tuoba Yuan meet year after year, never parting even in old age. Jiaoyu, my only wish in life is marry you. 6 months had passed since Lin Yu left, yet Xie Jingchen still had not found the slightest trace of her. He seized the imperial throne, using ruthless means to eliminate every obstacle, all in order to pave the way for bringing little fish back. No one could stop him from bringing his little fish back. Even less would anyone dare to give orders about his little fish. He could finally give her a complete home and love her without any reservation. But finding little fish remained always a faint hope. Until one day, the shadow guards presented the detailed records after the city was under strict lockdown during that period. Your Majesty, I have investigated. During those days, the city gates were closed tight, and only the diplomatic delegations from various countries were granted special passage. Among them, only the delegation from Jiang country departed hastily from the city on the day of the grand wedding. The shadow guard paused, then added another crucial piece of information. The city guards recalled that when the Jiang crown prince arrived, there was only one person on the carriage, but when he left, there seemed to be the sound of a woman's whispers from inside the vehicle. Jiang Guo, Xie Jingchen murmured, a faint light suddenly flashing through his hazy mind. He remembered only one decent old item that Lin Yu had, a jade pendant she had worn smooth through constant handling. With ancient and peculiar patterns etched into its surface, the shape bore a striking resemblance to the crest of the Jiang royal family. Yes, Jiang Guo had previously lost a princess. Could it be? Impossible. Xiao Yu was born without parents. How could she possibly be the princess of Jiang Kingdom? But Xie Jingchen hesitated for a moment, then immediately ordered, someone, prepare horses and go to Jiang Kingdom. But regardless of whether it's true or not, he would never let go of any chance of hope. This was his last opportunity. Even if she was truly the princess of Jiang Kingdom, he would still bring her back. No matter who she was, she would always be his woman. This time, he would use Jiangshan as his bride and take little fish back in an 8-person sedan chair. His little fish loved him so much that he would surely miss him and not want to let him suffer the pain of separation any longer. He didn't sleep or rest, changing horses but not people. Forcing the 7-day journey into 5 days, the closer he got to Jiang Kingdom, the stronger his heart pounded. He had a premonition that this time he would definitely be able to find Lin Yu. Xie Jingchen arrived just in time for the princess's adoption ceremony. The princess of Jiang Kingdom was about to ascend the Zhaixing Tower to pray for the welfare of the people. Xie Jingchen assembled his shadow guards and found an excellent vantage point to keep watch over the platform, upon the pavilion. Jiang Zhaoyu, dressed in a magnificent golden court robe, ascended the high platform step by step, accompanied by the emperor, empress, and crown prince. She gazed down at the cheering subjects beneath her, her expression serene. After praying, she personally scattered the brocade pouches symbolizing blessings among the crowd, the people's cheers, the falling blessing bags, all of this. It was as if he could no longer feel. Xie Jingchen stared intently at the golden figure on the platform. His eyes so fixed that tears began to well up in his eye sockets, though they were far apart and the figure was blurred, but he recognized it at once. That was his little fish, that face he had yearned for in his dreams, repeatedly traced in his mind during countless desperate nights. How could he not recognize it? His little fish. It was truly the princess of Jiang State who had been lost and then found again. Jiang Zhaoyu, little fish. He suddenly shoved aside the guards blocking his path and charged toward the pavilion without hesitation. His actions immediately caused a commotion. The royal guard stood like a wall, quickly forming a human barrier to block him completely. Rashness! Who dares disturb the princess's grand ceremony? Get out of the way! That is my empress. Xie Jingchen's eyes bulged with rage. He struggled desperately, trying to break through the human barrier, reaching toward her with his trembling hand. It's me, Xie Jingchen. I'm here to pick you up and take you home. Come home with me. This sudden turn of events also stunned Jiang Zhaoyu on the high platform. She looked at the man below who looked like he had lost his mind, and a shadow of fear instantly passed through her heart. She instinctively took a step backward. A tall figure swiftly blocked her path. Tuoba Yuan drew his sword, the blade gleaming with a sharp, chilling light. He firmly protected Jiang Zhaoyu, his eyes alert and watchful. Xie Jingchen looked at Jiang Zhaoyu, who was sheltered behind him, observing the unspoken and protective stance between them, and the brief look of dependence that flashed in Jiang Zhaoyu's eyes as she looked toward Tuoba Yuan. How could that be? The person standing by her side, the one who could protect her, could only be him, Xie Jingchen. Xie Jingchen roared with red blazing eyes. How could this man possibly be the Yang dynasty emperor? A low voice of doubt arose from the crowd. Xie Jingchen had ascended the throne not long ago, and this journey had been hasty and disheveled. His words at the grand ceremony seemed so abrupt and unbelievable. Silence, you fool! The commander of the guards shouted again, bringing the scene to a deadlock of tension and chaos. At this moment, the Jiang crown prince, who had been observing coldly from the sidelines, stepped forward. He had long recognized that this uninvited guest was none other than the Yang Emperor Xie Jingchen, who had once tortured his younger sister to the point of wishing for death. The Prince Jiang's eyes burned with fury and disgust, but as a crown prince, he knew full well that he must prioritize the larger interests of state diplomacy at this moment. He suppressed the hatred in his heart and said loudly, "So it is His Majesty the Yang Emperor who graces us with his presence. We have failed in our proper reception." He made a pleased gesture toward Xie Jingchen. "This place is too noisy. Please, follow me inside the hall for some tea." Xie Jingchen was half forcefully led away from the celebration venue and taken to the imperial palace. The palace doors closed, cutting off the outside. Xie Jingchen didn't even wait to be seated. He suddenly broke free from Jiang Chen's shoes supporting hand and bowed to the imperial seat where Emperor Jiang was seated. "I wish to offer the 16 border cities as dowry. Please marry off your country's princess Jiang Zhaoyu to me." Jiang Zhaoyu's face turned pale at hearing this. Xie Jingchen's gaze never left Jiang Zhaoyu's face. Of course he didn't miss her change in expression. Little fish, it's really you. The Jiang Emperor didn't expect that what he proposed would be such a request. His face immediately darkened. Yang Emperor, what do you mean by this? Xie Jingchen spoke calmly. The Jiang Kingdom needs a powerful ally, and an alliance through marriage with His Majesty would be the best outcome. As he spoke, his eyes looked gently at Jiang Jiaoyu. Princess, what do you think? Jiang Jiaoyu felt cold all over as he looked at her. She knew that Xie Jingchen was using the Jiang Kingdom, using her father the emperor and her mother, to threaten her. If she didn't agree, Xie Jingchen might do something crazy, even if she was unwilling. She couldn't toy with their lives. She had already made a mistake once. Xie Jingchen saw that she hadn't refused outright, and the corners of his eyes curved up first. He knew that her heart still had him in it. His little fish was always the most compassionate person. Before Jiang Jiaoyu could finish speaking, Jiang Huang interrupted him with anger on his face. Emperor Yang, you have such boldness to threaten me. Let's not even mention that Zhao Yu and our country's war hero General Tuoba have already made their vows of marriage. By the way you treated my daughter during your previous visit to the Yang dynasty, I could never allow her to marry you. If you have ideas of going to war, I will accompany you all the way. It's a perfect opportunity to seek justice for the wrongs you suffered at the hands of the Yang dynasty against my daughter. Every word was forceful and resolute. Jiang Zhaoyu's eyes stung. On the verge of shedding tears, she finally felt what it was like to be unhesitatingly chosen by someone. Tuoba Yuan comfortingly pinched Jiang Zhaoyu's sleeve, then stood up and knelt down with a bow toward Emperor Jiang. Since the Yang Emperor has resorted to warfare to threaten His Majesty within our borders, if such a day should come, I humbly request permission to lead the charge. After speaking, he turned his head slightly, looking at Xie Jingchen with a hint of mockery in his eyes. Didn't the Yang Emperor have a beloved crown prince consort before he ascended the throne? Now you come again to request to marry our princess. What? Do you mean that the Yang Emperor wants my dynasty's princess to be a concubine? Xie Jingchen's gaze firmly fixed on Tuoba Yuan. That glare seemed to want to tear him apart with 1,000 knives. How dare he? How dare he steal his woman? She was his wife. She was his woman. Even if they were temporarily separated due to a misunderstanding, the countless moments that had transpired between them could never be matched by him. Xie Jingchen stood up and said in a deep voice, General Tuoba, Her Majesty and Princess Zhao Yu were temporarily separated due to a misunderstanding when they were in the Yang dynasty. She only loves me, and her engagement to you was merely to anger me. I hope you have some sense of propriety and cancel your engagement as soon as possible. Jiang Zhaoyu first looked at him with considerable surprise, then couldn't help but burst into laughter. She had always been so before, which is why Xie Jingchen still believes that she still has feelings for him. She didn't want to give him any hope anymore. Tuoba Yuan stood up and stood beside Jiang Zhaoyu, slightly turning to protect her. Is that so? Since Zhaoyu has done so much for you, how do you repay her? Xie Jingchen's heart trembled, leaving him momentarily speechless. Your Majesty. His hand, hanging at his side, clenched tightly. He dare not look at Jiang Zhaoyu, only urgently addressing Emperor Jiang. Your Majesty's harem has been empty, and my desire to marry Princess Zhaoyu is sincere. There will be no other women in your Majesty's harem. Jiang Huang snorted disdainfully. If it weren't for the fact that Yang and Jiang countries shared a border, and Yang's military was powerful, he would have had this faithless scoundrel dragged away and fed to the dogs long ago. How could he still dare to be so reckless? Jiang Huang waved his hand, and the guards below drew their swords in unison. Please proceed, Emperor Yang. Xie Jingchen's eyes were bloodshot as he turned his gaze toward Jiang Zhaoyu, his expression carrying a hint of pleading. Xiaoyu, I really know I'm wrong. Give me a chance to make amends, okay? The little fish in his memory had never rejected him, but now he suddenly began to feel anxious. because the expression on his little fish's face right now was one he had never seen before, cold as ice. He had kissed countless lips that he had yearned for months, lips that parted and closed, speaking clearly, "I don't want to, Xie Chen, I won't like you anymore." Jiang Zhaoyu took Tuoba Yuan's hand first, looking at Xie Chen with the eyes of a stranger. "I already have someone who loves me and protects me. Why should I care about your late love?" Xie Jingchen's face turned as pale as paper. He still remembered how that lively girl like spring would when he returned home, her hair tips brushing against his fingertips. She threw herself into his arms. "Xie Chen, I love you the most." And now, only one sentence remained replaying endlessly in his mind. "I will never love you again." Like a sharp blade, countless stabs pierced his heart. Xie Chen knelt on one knee on the ground, vomiting up a mouthful of blood. The farce ended like that. Jiang Zhaoyu thought he would give up and leave, but Xie Chen actually used a whole city as collateral to exchange for a few days of staying in Jiang country. These past few days, Xie Chen had appeared from time to time on the road Jiang Zhaoyu had to take when leaving the mansion. "Xiaoyu, do you remember this hairpin? This was our token of love. Your Majesty has already fixed it for you. Little fish, His Majesty has resewed a set of wedding clothes. His Majesty's current skill has improved compared to before. Xiaoyu, this is the dessert you used to love the most. I brought it from Yang Dynasty. Would you like to give it a try?" The only response he could receive was Jiang Zhaoyu's indifferent departing figure. She treated him as air, not even getting angry or responding. Xie Chen gave a bitter smile. So that's what it was like when she was looking at his back view earlier. Watching Jiang Zhaoyu and Tuoba Yuan's increasingly intimate actions, he felt his heart was completely scorched by the fire of jealousy. That day he finally could no longer, and he blocked Jiang Zhaoyu on the road. His voice trembled with a hint of grievance. "Xiaoyu, I really know I was wrong. I've taken care of everyone who bullied you. Shen Wanyue is now disabled. The one who defiled you has been beheaded, and those who spread rumors about you have also been exposed. Please forgive me. I was forced to marry Shen Wanyue before, but now no one can force me to give you up. I will love you forever." Forced? Jiang Zhaoyu couldn't help but want to laugh. Forced to marry Shen Wanyue, you would need to destroy her virtue completely, afraid she would covet the position of Crown Prince's consort, and that it would look bad if something happened later. "Xie Chen, they bullied me because they got your tacit approval. You know everything, but you pretend not to hear or see. Thinking that as long as you're here, they won't treat me too badly. So you're the root cause of all this. Xie Chen, why be so insincere about helping me take revenge? They were punished. What about you?" Xie Chen's usually calm and composed face could no longer maintain its original composure. He almost pleaded, "Little fish, whatever you want me to do, just as long as you go back with me." As he spoke, he said with a tone that seemed to seek approval, "Xiaoyu, you will always be the emperor's only empress." Xie Chen originally thought he would see the slightest trace of emotion on her face, but she sneered mockingly. "To seize the Eastern Palace, you abandoned your first wife. To ascend the throne, you patricide and fratricide. To conceal your past, you slaughtered the people who had helped you. You only love yourself. Xie Chen, I only think of your death. Get lost." The next second, the guards mercilessly pushed Xie Chen out of the door. Xie Chen looked at that person who was within reach but unattainable, each breath making his chest ache. He stood there at the princess's mansion gate, helplessly watching Tuoba Yuan carry a bouquet of perfectly bloomed spring flowers into the house. The originally quiet princess's mansion now echoed with faint voices of conversation and laughter. The spring breeze urges the peanut blossoms, blooming across the hillsides, truly beautiful. I wonder if I have the honor of inviting the little princess to go out for a spring outing and admire the flowers tomorrow. Jiang Zhaoyu didn't refuse. just sniffed the bouquet of flowers and smiled. All right, as they stepped out of the palace gate. Xie Jingchen once again stood like a ghost in the shadows outside the courtyard. Jiang Jiaoyu pretended not to see him, allowing Tuoba Yuan to help her onto the horse. The sound of hooves rang out, leaving only a cloud of dust for Xie Jingchen. Prepare horses. Xie Jingchen issued the command through gritted teeth, his eyes burning with jealousy. The spring outing spot was filled with the vibrant spirit of spring. When Xie Jingchen arrived on horseback, what pierced his eyes was Shijiang and Tuoba Yuan walked hand in hand by the stream, not knowing what they were talking about. Jiang Jiaoyu smiled gently, lightly lifting her toes to close the distance, her lips about to meet Tuoba Yuan's lips. Let her go, Xie Jingchen roared as he charged down from his horse, a punch full of wind rushing toward Tuoba Yuan's face. Tuoba Yuan dodged aside and protected Jiang Jiaoyu behind him, while his attendants immediately formed a human wall around them. Xie Jingchen. For the sake of I have repeatedly endured. Do not push your luck. Endure. Xie Jingchen sneered, his eyes coldly fixed on Tuoba Yuan. What are you? How dare you stand by her side, when I was dependent on her, sharing life and death with her? Where were you enjoying yourself? He deliberately brought up that past which Tuoba Yuan could never have been part of, each word cutting to the heart. Tuoba Yuan's jaw tightened, pain and fury intertwined in his eyes. There was no earlier time to find the princess and protect her. This was indeed his deepest regret and source of pain. Seeing Tuoba Yuan remain silent, Xie Jingchen's lips curled into a cruel and malicious smile, his voice suddenly dropping. The sight of her pleasuring herself beneath me, every panting breath of passion she let out, every inch of her sensitive skin, these were all cultivated by my own hands. Can't you bear to watch? What, have you never touched her? The last trace of restraint completely shattered in Tuoba Yuan's eyes. That was the bright moon he treasured like a precious jewel, something he couldn't bear to be desecrated by such filthy words. Xie Jingchen's head was knocked askew by a heavy punch. Tuoba Yuan's fists roared like the wind, each strike fierce and merciless. Fully committed to a fight to the death, Xie Jingchen was equally unwilling to back down, and the two instantly locked in combat. Their fists and feet striking against each other with muffled thuds. Stop, everyone, stop! Jiang Jiaoyu cried out anxiously, but was forced back by the gusts of wind from their fierce fight. Unable to get close, she watched as Tuoba Yuan's knuckles burst open and bled, her heart clenching painfully. She rushed over without hesitation, blocking him with her body. Stop fighting. The fists of the two men suddenly stopped just before they could hit Jiang Jiaoyu. Jiang Jiaoyu walked up to Xie Jingchen with